The air within the grand convocation chamber of the Zalosian hegemony hung thick and heavy, not merely with the recycled breath of the assembled delegates, but with the palpable weight of fear and uncertainty. Luminescent glyphs, usually shimmering with declarations of unity and prosperity, now pulsed with an unsettling crimson, reflecting off the polished obsidian surfaces and the multiple ocular facets of the Zalosian first speaker, Cathar. His primary vision stalks, typically held aloft in dignified composure, drooped slightly, mirroring the collective apprehension that rippled through the tiered platforms of the chamber. Before him, an immense holographic projection shimmered, depicting a sector of charted space. A sector now disturbingly redesignated, its formerly vacant regions now scarred by enigmatic energy signatures. For eons, this particular void had been catalogued as a testament to the impermanence of even advanced civilizations, a graveyard of forgotten stars, and the presumed dust of a once powerful species, long erased from the galactic tapestry by some unknown, catastrophic event. Delegates, Cathar's voice, usually a resonant bass, was now a gravelly whisper, amplified and distorted by the chamber's acoustic enhancers. The preliminary analyses are incomplete, yet the implications are chillingly clear. The sector designated PX-734, long considered dormant, has manifested anomalous energy fluctuations, signatures unlike any recorded in our archives, signatures that suggest activity. A collective shudder passed through the diverse assemblage. The Virel, with their chitinous carapaces, clicked their mandibles in distress. The ethereal, energy-based Seldar pulsed with agitated light. Even the stoic, crystalline Zethani emitted faint, disquieting harmonic vibrations. This was not merely an unknown. It was an impossible, a violation of the deep-seated cosmic order they had meticulously charted and understood for millennia. High Elder Vithrak of the Virel Consortium extended a manipulator limb, its jointed segments clicking against the polished armrest of his station. First speaker, with due respect to the gravity of this revelation, the historical records are unequivocal. The humans, as they called themselves, vanished from all observable space over 87 millennia ago. Their home system, a minor G-type star, displayed catastrophic energetic discharge events consistent with a core destabilization or a weapon of unparalleled destructive yield. Their remnants, if any, would be molecular dust, scattered by stellar winds. To suggest otherwise, it borders on the mythological. His skepticism was a common sentiment, a shared comfort against the unimaginable. For generations, the story of the vanished humans had been a cautionary tale, a grim reminder that even the most ambitious civilizations could be extinguished without a trace. Their sudden, complete disappearance had baffled ancient astronomers, becoming a cosmic enigma that had long since settled into accepted fact. Cathar turned his primary vision stalks towards Vithrak, a slow, deliberate movement. High Elder, our sensor readings, though fragmented, indicate the emergence of constructs, large-scale constructs, exiting faster-than-light transit points within the formerly dormant sector. Their energy signatures, while unique, bear a faint, almost imperceptible resonance with the residual energy patterns observed during the initial catastrophic event in the human's home system millennia ago. It is as if a dormant echo has awakened. The chamber fell into a profound silence, broken only by the hum of the holographic projector. The implications were too vast, too paradigm-shattering to process immediately. A species presumed extinct for 87,000 cycles, returning, it defied all known principles of survival, all historical precedents. And their numbers? The question came from Alara, the ethereal Seldar Prime emissary, her luminous form dimming slightly, indicating profound unease. What is the scale of this? Return. Cathar gestured, and the holographic projection zoomed in, revealing shimmering points of light that resolved into distinct, albeit still indistinct, shapes. Our long-range probes, those few that survived the initial energy fluctuations, estimate a formation, not merely a few vessels, not even a significant fleet by our standards. They are arrayed in a vast geometric pattern, of an armada prime emissary. Their sheer scale, the uniformity of their energy signatures across such an immense formation, it suggests an organizational structure of profound capability. And their FTL drives, unlike anything we have observed, generate localized distortions that ripple through spacetime without the conventional energy expenditure expected from such displacements. The words hung in the air, each one a hammer blow to their ingrained understanding of the cosmos. An armada, not a remnant, not a desperate ease. Cappy, but an organized, formidable force. "Impossible," murmured Zephyr, the Zethani harmonizer, his crystalline form resonating with discordant frequencies. "To sustain a civilization, let alone an armada, in total isolation for such a duration without any detectable trace, the energy requirements, the resources, the technological stagnation that would inevitably occur. It violates the fundamental principles of societal evolution. They must be something else entirely. A new emergent species, perhaps, utilizing ancient human technology found adrift. The Zethani, with their deep understanding of cosmic harmonics and long-term societal trends, found this scenario the least disruptive to their established understanding. It was a more palatable impossibility than the alternative. Cathar brought up a series of archived historical images, flickering ancient representations of human physiology, their bipedal forms, soft integument, and limited sensory organs. Their physiological makeup, as depicted in the fragmented historical data we possess, was unremarkable. Prone to biological degradation, requiring constant environmental regulation, a lifespan barely 1/100th of our own. Their technology, while nascent for its era, was primitive compared to even our own early expansion phase. They were a species, by all accounts, destined for eventual, if not immediate, self-annihilation or, at best, absorption into a larger, more resilient galactic power. Their disappearance was seen as an inevitability, hastened by their inherent volatility. "Volatility?" scoffed Vithrak. "Indeed. Their records spoke of incessant internal conflicts, resource wars, philosophical schisms, a species perpetually on the brink of internal collapse. Their extinction was not a tragedy, first speaker, but a logical conclusion, a self-cleansing of the galactic tapestry. To imagine them returning, it suggests a level of deception, a hidden capacity for prolonged subterfuge that contradicts all their documented history." His fear was masked by a thinly veiled contempt, a common reaction to a species whose documented history had always been a chaotic anomaly in the ordered galaxy. The first speaker's voice grew quieter, more urgent. What if that volatility, that chaotic energy, was merely a surface manifestation? What if their disappearance was not an extinction, but a strategic withdrawal, a calculated, epic-spanning maneuver to cultivate some hidden strength, to evolve beyond our limited comprehension? We have no precedent for such an act. No species has ever truly vanished, and then re-emerged with such apparent power. He paused, his vision stalks sweeping over the hushed chamber. "The armada is not merely present, it is advancing. Slowly, deliberately, towards the established Zalosian defense perimeter. They have not responded to our hails. They maintain a silent, unwavering trajectory." This last revelation sent a fresh wave of unease through the chamber. Silence was not neutrality. In the intricate dance of galactic diplomacy, silence from such a force was a declaration of intent, an ominous refusal to engage on terms dictated by established powers. It was a challenge, stark and undeniable. "What is our projected response, first speaker?" Ilara inquired, her light pulsing with a more rapid, agitated rhythm. "Do we engage? Do we attempt further communication? The Zalosian hegemony's defense protocols mandate immediate interdiction of unknown forces within the perimeter." Cathar extended a hand towards the holographic projection, his digit tracing the path of the encroaching armada. "To engage would be premature. We lack sufficient data on their technological capabilities, their combat doctrine, their ultimate intentions. To fire upon them risks provoking an entity whose full scope remains unknown, an entity that has defied 87 millennia of cosmic expectation. Conversely, to allow them unfettered access to the core systems is unthinkable. We are left with a single precarious option, observation while maintaining full defensive readiness, and a desperate attempt to initiate direct communication, irrespective of their current silence." The fear in his voice was no longer merely apprehension. It was the chilling realization of their collective ignorance, their galactic hubris laid bare by the sudden reappearance of a ghost. The galaxy they thought they knew was suddenly far larger, far more mysterious than any of them had ever dared to imagine. Days bled into cycles, cycles into weeks, each moment a torturous crawl under the oppressive shadow of the approaching human armada. The Zalosian defense fleets, once formidable symbols of unchallenged might, now formed a trembling, multi-layered shield, their weapon systems charged, their FTL drives on standby, ready for either engagement or retreat. Yet the humans continued their advance, a slow, methodical progression that spoke not of aggression, but of an inexorable purpose. Their silence remained absolute, a deafening roar in the minds of the assembled delegates in the convocation chamber. The holographic projection of their formation, A vast, crystalline array of vessels unlike any known design now dominated the chamber's central display, its scale humbling, its mystery maddening. Their energy signatures remain stable, reported a Zalosian fleet commander, his voice strained even through the comms. No offensive maneuvers detected, no weapon charging, they simply proceed. It is unsettling, first speaker. This unwavering focus, this lack of response to our repeated, increasingly urgent hails, it defies all conventional tactical doctrine. High Elder Vithrak, his impatience now curdling into barely contained fury, slammed a manipulator limb onto his console. Defies doctrine, it defies sanity. They ignore all established protocols. They encroach upon sovereign territory without so much as a declaration of intent. This is not diplomacy, this is an insult, a veiled threat. We cannot continue to merely observe while this relic of a vanished age parades its power through our space. His rhetoric was met with murmurs of agreement from several of the less patient delegates. The collective instinct was to react, to assert their long-held dominance. And what if their power is indeed beyond our current understanding, High Elder? Cathar countered, his voice steady despite the internal turmoil. To strike first, to launch an unprovoked assault, risks escalating this encounter into a conflict we are utterly unprepared for. We have no data on their shields, their weaponry, their tactical AI. We only know their numbers are vast, and their technology has defied 87 millennia of presumed stagnation. Prudence dictates caution, however frustrating it may be. He knew the weight of his decision. The fate of the hegemony, perhaps even the galactic balance, rested on this knife edge. Alara, the Seldar emissary, projected a series of faint, shimmering data points. Our deep scan probes have managed to glean fragments of structural data from their vessels. They are unlike any known construction. Their outer hulls appear to be composed of a multi-layered, adaptive material, constantly shifting its molecular lattice. It refracts our sensor pings in unpredictable ways, making accurate targeting virtually impossible even at extreme range. Furthermore, their primary energy conduits appear to tap into localized subspace fields, drawing power directly from the fabric of reality itself, rather than conventional fusion or antimatter reactors. This implies a level of energy generation and manipulation that far exceeds our own. Her assessment, delivered with a detached scientific precision, only amplified the fear. Subspace manipulation for power generation? Zephyr, the Z-Thani, resonated with a distinct tremor. That is theoretical physics emissary, a concept explored only in our deepest philosophical texts, deemed too unstable, too dangerous for practical application. To master such a force, it would require an understanding of universal constants that borders on the divine. The Z-Thani reverence for natural laws made this revelation particularly unsettling. It wasn't just advanced technology, it was a fundamental shift in their understanding of what was possible. Cathar nodded slowly. Indeed, which brings us to the core of our dilemma. These are not the humans of the ancient archives, or if they are, they have undergone a transformation so profound as to render them an entirely new entity. We cannot apply ancient prejudices or outdated assumptions to this situation. We must find a way to communicate, to bridge this chasm of millennia before the tension becomes unbearable. Just as the debate reached another fever pitch, the holographic projection flickered. The vast, silent armada, now mere parsecs from the outermost Zalosian defense line, slowed its advance. Then, with a sudden, coordinated grace that defied their immense size, the lead vessels began to reconfigure their formation. It was not a combat maneuver nor a scattering. Instead, they began to arrange themselves into an intricate, geometric pattern, a three-dimensional construct that slowly resolved itself into a universal symbol for communication. A spiraling glyph known across countless species, universally understood to signify a request for dialogue. A collective gasp swept through the convocation chamber. Their silence had broken. Their intent, though still ambiguous, was now expressed, and it was a request, not a demand. Then, from the central vessel of the newly formed communication array, a single, focused energy beam lanced out, not towards a Zalosian warship, but towards the Zalosian First Speaker's flagship, positioned at the very heart of the defense perimeter. It was not a weapon. It was a modulated signal, encoded with a complexity that strained the flagship's advanced decryption algorithm. On the bridge of his flagship, Cathar felt a profound, almost dizzying sense of relief mingled with intense apprehension. "Open a secure channel," he commanded, his voice trembling slightly. "Attempt to decode. Route any incoming message directly to the convocation chamber." Moments later, a new holographic projection shimmered into existence within the chamber, superimposed over the image of the human armada. It was an image of a human, a male by historical standards, though his appearance was refined, almost ethereal compared to the crude images from the archives. His skin was unblemished, his eyes a calm, deep sapphire, radiating an almost unsettling serenity. He wore a simple, unadorned uniform that seemed to flow around him, shimmering with subtle, integrated light. Behind him, the interior of his vessel was sleek, minimalist, yet suffused with an almost organic warmth. The image was so clear, so vivid, it felt as if he stood physically within the chamber. His voice, when it came, was not the harsh, guttural sounds of ancient human languages, but a smooth, melodic cadence, perfectly translated by the Zylosian Universal Translator. "Greetings, Zylosian hegemony," the human began, his gaze sweeping across the stunned delegates with an unnerving intensity, as if he could perceive each of them individually through the projection. "We are the re-emergent human collective. I am Ambassador Kalen Vance, designated primary diplomatic envoy of the Human Stellar Concordance. We apologize for our prolonged silence. Our protocols for re-engagement with Galactic society required a comprehensive observational period to ensure mutual understanding and mitigate potential misunderstandings." His voice carried a calm authority, devoid of aggression, yet firm. Vithrak bristled. "Observational period? You observed us while encroaching upon our sovereign space. This is an unprecedented violation." Kalen Vance's expression remained perfectly serene. "High Elder Vithrak of the Virel Consortium, your apprehension is understandable. However, allow me to clarify. We have not entered what we consider your sovereign space without cause. Our return trajectory was precisely calibrated to navigate a previously uncharted spatial anomaly field, a field that, according to our updated astronavigational data, appears to overlap with a relatively recent expansion of Zylosian influence. Our intent was and remains purely diplomatic." His casual address of Vithrak by name, gleaned from their observational period, sent a fresh jolt of unease through the chamber. They had been watched, studied, and assessed. Cathar, regaining some of his composure, stepped forward. "Ambassador Vance, your sudden reappearance after 87 millennia of presumed extinction is profoundly unsettling. We require clarification. Where have you been? How have you returned? And what is your ultimate purpose in approaching the Zylosian hegemony with such a formidable presence?" His questions were direct, reflecting the urgent need for answers. Kalen Vance's gaze settled upon Cathar, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. "First Speaker Cathar, your questions are valid and deserve comprehensive answers. To understand our return, you must first understand our departure. What your archives recorded as a catastrophic energetic discharge from our home system was, in fact, the culmination of a desperate, species-wide effort. Faced with an impending cosmic event, a localized stellar drift phenomenon that threatened to unravel the very fabric of our reality, consuming our star and all surrounding systems, our ancestors made a monumental choice." He paused, allowing the gravity of his words to sink in. They did not succumb to extinction. They engineered a solution. They sacrificed their home world, their immediate stellar neighborhood, not to annihilation, but to create a localized, self-sustaining pocket dimension. A temporal spatial refuge, shielded from the accelerating cosmic decay. We entered this pocket dimension, essentially removing ourselves from the conventional timeline, to survive the collapse and to, hopefully, emerge once the cosmic anomaly had dissipated. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the chamber. A pocket dimension? A self-created temporal spatial refuge? Such a feat was beyond the realm of even their most advanced theoretical physics. "And you survived there?" Ilara asked, her light pulsing with a newfound fascination. "For 87,000 cycles, untouched by time, by the degradation of technology, by the inherent entropy of existence." "Not untouched, Prime Emissary," Vance replied, his voice softening slightly. "But transformed. We did not merely survive. We adapted. We evolved. The unique temporal flux within our refuge allowed us to accelerate our scientific and philosophical understanding, to refine our technology beyond the limitations of linear time. We learned to perceive the universe, not me. Rely in 3 dimensions, but in the intricate dance of spacetime itself. We sought not just to endure, but to transcend." His words hung in the air, resonating with a profound, almost spiritual weight. "Our armada, as you perceive it, is not merely a collection of warships. It is a migratory fleet, yes, but also a living testament to that transcendence. Each vessel is a self-sustaining ecosystem, integrated with our collective consciousness. We have returned to a galaxy we barely recognize, a galaxy shaped by civilizations that have risen and fallen since our departure. Our intention is not conquest, not retribution for a perceived injustice. Our intention is reintegration, to understand the new galactic order and to, perhaps, contribute to its future. Vithrak slammed his manipulator down again, his skepticism unconvinced. Contribution or dominance? This transcendence you speak of, this mastery of spacetime and pocket dimensions, it sounds more like a claim to superior power. And your formation, Ambassador, is not merely migratory. It is undeniably a military array, vast beyond anything we have ever witnessed. Kalen Vance met Vithrak's gaze with unwavering calm. High Elder, the term military array is relative. For a species that has existed in isolation for millennia, a species that has learned to draw upon the very fabric of reality for its energy, whose vessels are living extensions of our collective will, our fleet is simply our means of travel, our means of re-entering a galaxy that may not welcome us. It is a measure of self-preservation, not aggression. We seek peace, not conflict. We seek understanding, not subjugation. He paused, his gaze sweeping over the assembled delegates once more. We know what you perceive. We know the fear that our reappearance has ignited. We understand your caution, your suspicion. But we offer you this, an opportunity to look beyond ancient fears, beyond historical prejudices, and to forge a new path. We offer our knowledge, our understanding of the cosmos, our unique perspective on existence, not as a weapon, but as a gift. The chamber remained silent, absorbing his words, each delegate grappling with the impossible truth presented before them. The humans, once dismissed as a minor, self-destructive species, had not only survived, but had transcended the very notion of time and extinction. They had returned not with a roar of vengeance, but with a serene offer of peace, cloaked in an undeniable, incomprehensible power. The galaxy they thought they knew had just become profoundly, irrevocably larger. The initial communication from Ambassador Vance had splintered the Zalosian convocation chamber into factions of fervent belief and entrenched skepticism. For days, the debates raged, echoing through the grand hall, punctuated by the rhythmic chimes of the automated debate timers. High Elder Vithrak led the charge of the disbelievers, accusing the humans of an elaborate deception, their pocket dimension, a fabricated myth designed to mask an insidious, long-term plan for galactic domination. Alara, the Seldar emissary, swayed between cautious optimism and deep scientific curiosity, her luminous form shifting through a spectrum of colors reflecting her internal processing. Zephyr, the Zethani, found a strange, almost spiritual resonance in Vance's words, sensing a connection to the fundamental harmonics of the universe that transcended mere technology. Cathar, however, remained the anchor, his steady gaze and even tone preventing the chamber from descending into full-blown panic or unprovoked aggression. He understood the profound fear, the existential dread that accompanied such an unprecedented event. A species returning from oblivion, not as a desperate refugee, but as a refined, self-assured entity capable of impossible feats. It shattered their entire cosmic framework. Regardless of the veracity of their claims, Cathar stated during a particularly heated session, his voice cutting through the cacophony, the fact remains, they possess capabilities we do not understand, and they have approached us with a declared intent of diplomacy. To reject that overture, to condemn them purely on the basis of our historical archives, would be a monumental failure of judgment. It would be to declare war on the unknown, a war we are ill-equipped to fight. He paused, his vision stalks sweeping over the delegates. We will send an envoy, a small, carefully selected delegation. We will engage in direct dialogue, not merely through holographic projections. We will seek to verify their claims, to understand their nature, and to ascertain the true depth of their intentions. This decision, though met with resistance, was ultimately accepted. The Zalosian hegemony, despite its fears, prided itself on its diplomatic resilience and its measured approach to galactic crises. To do otherwise would be to descend into the very volatility they had once attributed to the humans themselves. The chosen vessel for the diplomatic mission was the Diplomatic Respite, a Zalosian research and survey cruiser, stripped of all offensive armaments, its shields optimized for passive observation. Aboard were Cathar himself, Alara, representing the Seldar's scientific curiosity, and a junior Zethani harmonizer, a promising young crystalline named Lyric, whose sensitive array could detect subtle energy fluctuations and empathic resonances. Even Vthrak, despite his vehement opposition, was compelled to send a representative, a grizzled VREL tactician named KRL, who maintained a sullen silence, his multifaceted eyes constantly scanning for any sign of treachery. As the diplomatic respite approached the human armada, the scale became even more breathtaking. The vessels were not merely massive. They seemed to hum with an internal vitality, their surfaces shifting and refracting light in iridescent patterns. They did not bear the harsh, utilitarian lines of warships, but rather the elegant, organic curves of living structures. The silence persisted, not out of hostility, but out of an unnerving, almost spiritual calm. A single human vessel, larger than any other in the formation, designated by their scans as the primary diplomatic platform, detached itself and glided forward. It was a marvel of engineering, its hull appearing to be woven from starlight and shadow. It settled before the diplomatic respite, opening a vast, shimmering portal in its side, a soft, inviting light emanating from within. Cathar felt a tremor of apprehension, yet also a profound sense of awe. This was it, the true engagement. "Prepare boarding party," he commanded, his voice firm. "Maintain full sensor suite, but no active scans. We enter as guests, not as spies." Stepping through the portal felt like passing through a veil into another reality. The interior of the human vessel was not the sterile, metallic environment they expected. It was a vast, open space, suffused with a soft, warm light that seemed to emanate from the very air itself. Lush, alien flora, unlike any known to the Zalosians, grew in bioluminescent gardens, scenting the air with sweet, exotic fragrances. Water features rippled with gentle melodies, and small, iridescent creatures flitted through the air. It was a living ecosystem, contained within a starship. Ambassador Kalen Vance awaited them, standing at the center of a wide, circular platform that gently rotated, offering panoramic views of the internal environment. He was accompanied by two other humans, their faces similarly serene, their movements fluid and graceful. "Welcome, first speaker Cathar and esteemed delegates," Vance greeted them, his voice resonating with a subtle internal echo that seemed to calm the mind. "Welcome to the Ethel, our primary reintegration vessel. We have endeavored to create an environment that reflects our current understanding of harmonious existence." Cathar, despite his composure, found himself momentarily speechless, overwhelmed by the sheer, unexpected beauty of the environment. "Ambassador Vance," he managed, This is beyond anything we could have anticipated. This is not merely a vessel, it is a world." Vance smiled, a genuine, warm expression that softened his features. "In a sense, it is. Within our pocket dimension, the concept of a vessel as a mere transport mechanism became archaic. Our ships are extensions of our collective being, self-sustaining ecosystems designed for long-duration habitation, learning, and cultural evolution. We learn to integrate biological and technological systems at a fundamental level." Ilara, her light pulsing rapidly with scientific excitement, stepped forward. "Ambassador, your claims of subspace energy manipulation, of temporal acceleration within a pocket dimension, these are concepts that defy our current understanding of physics. Can you demonstrate?" Vance gestured towards a shimmering, translucent wall. "Prime Emissary, we have prepared a small demonstration, but it is not merely about showing you technology. It is about understanding the underlying principles that govern our existence now." He led them through corridors that seemed to shift and adapt to their presence, leading them deeper into the vessel's heart. They arrived at a chamber where a swirling vortex of energy pulsed at its center. Vance explained, "This is a localized temporal spatial field. Within our pocket dimension, we learn to harness and stabilize these fields, using them not just for power, but for material synthesis, for biological evolution, for information processing at speeds that would appear instantaneous to your perception." As he spoke, he gestured, and a single small seed floated from a nearby planter. He guided it into the vortex. The delegates watched in stunned silence as the seed, within moments, visibly accelerated its growth, rapidly unfurling into a seedling, then a sapple. And finally a fully mature, fruit-bearing plant, all within the span of a few seconds. Then, just as rapidly, it withered, its life cycle completed at an accelerated rate, leaving behind a new, viable seed. KRL, the VREL tactician, grunted, his skepticism momentarily forgotten. You can manipulate time itself." "Not time itself, KRL. Vance corrected gently. But localized temporal vectors. We learned to bend the fabric of spacetime to control its flow within specific parameters. This allows us to cultivate resources, to develop biological solutions to complex problems, and to process information across vast networks of consciousness with unparalleled efficiency. It is how we adapted, how we evolved, without succumbing to stagnation or resource depletion within our isolated refuge. Lyric, the Zethani harmonizer, extended a delicate tendril, resonating with the subtle energy fluctuations emanating from the vortex. The harmonies, they are pure, undistorted by chaos, a perfect resonance with universal constants. This is not merely technology, it is an art form, a dance with existence itself. Cathar felt a profound shift within him. This was not a deception. This was a truth so vast, so encompassing, it reshaped his entire perception of reality. These humans were not just survivors, they were masters of the fundamental forces of the universe. Ambassador, Cathar said, his voice imbued with a new reverence, you spoke of a cosmic event that forced your retreat. The localized stellar drift phenomenon you mentioned, what precisely was it, and is it still a threat? Vance's serene expression grew subtly serious. First speaker, that is perhaps the most critical information we can impart. The localized stellar drift phenomenon was merely a symptom of a far greater cosmic instability, an accelerating wave of entropic decay originating from beyond the charted galaxy that threatens to unravel spacetime itself. We termed it the Great Dissolution. Our pocket dimension was a desperate measure to shield ourselves from its initial encroaching tendrils. He paused, his sapphire eyes reflecting a deep, ancient sorrow. We emerged because our predictive models indicated that the Great Dissolution has now reached a critical threshold. Its leading edge is approaching your galaxy, Zalosian hegemony. The catastrophic energetic discharge from our home system 87 millennia ago was not merely a reaction to a localized threat. It was a desperate, early warning. We contained a localized manifestation of the dissolution, sacrificing our world to prevent its immediate spread into your space. Our return now is not merely for reintegration. It is a desperate warning, a call to arms, if you will, against an existential threat that transcends all petty conflicts. The words hung in the beautiful, living chamber, chilling them far more profoundly than any hostile declaration could have. The armada was not a threat. It was a harbinger. The long silence was not arrogance. It was the quiet preparation for an impossible war. The initial fear of the humans was now replaced by a far deeper, more primal terror. The fear of the unknown cosmic force they had just been informed was on their doorstep. The humans had returned not to conquer, but to save them from a threat they hadn't even known existed. The true scope of humanity's 87 millennia journey and their ultimate purpose had just been revealed, and it was far grander and far more terrifying than any of them could have conceived. The revelation of the Great Dissolution, the creeping entropic decay threatening to unravel spacetime itself, plunged the convocation chamber into a state of profound, unprecedented crisis. The delegates, once locked in their petty political squabbles and ancient prejudices, were now united by a single, crushing weight of cosmic dread. The holographic projection, which once displayed the enigmatic human armada, now projected complex simulations of the Great Dissolution, swirling tendrils of distorted reality, consuming stars and galaxies, relentlessly advancing towards their own familiar spiral arm. Kalen Vance, now a permanent fixture within the chamber's central projection, patiently elucidated the finer points of this existential threat. His calm, almost melancholic voice provided a stark contrast to the frantic urgency permeating the Zalosian and allied delegates. The Great Dissolution is not a conventional enemy, first speaker. It is a fundamental aberration of universal physics, a cascade failure of spacetime integrity. It cannot be fought with traditional weaponry. It consumes energy, matter, and eventually, even the very concepts of existence. Our survival within the pocket dimension allowed us to observe its progression, to analyze its characteristics, and to formulate theoretical and now practical countermeasures. High Elder Vithrak, his skepticism replaced by a grim resolve, gestured with a clawed manipulator. Ambassador, you claim to possess countermeasures. But for a force that consumes reality itself, what possible defense could exist? Our most potent antimatter disruptors, our gravimetric stabilizers, they are mere toys against such a threat. Vance nodded slowly. Indeed, High Elder, conventional weapons are useless. The dissolution thrives on energy expenditure, assimilating it into its destructive propagation. Our countermeasure is not a weapon of force, but a precision instrument of restoration. Over the millennia of our isolation, we focused our scientific efforts on manipulating the fundamental constants of the universe, not for destructive purposes, but for regenerative ones. We developed what we term spatial reintegration fields. He paused, allowing the gravity of the term to sink in. These fields, generated by our specialized vessels, work by locally reversing the entropic decay, stitching spacetime back together at the quantum level. They require immense, sustained power and extremely precise calibration. They cannot destroy the dissolution, but they can push it back, stabilize affected regions, and prevent its further spread. Think of it as mending the fabric of reality itself, thread by delicate thread. Alara, the Seldar emissary, pulsed with a torrent of questions. Spatial reintegration, reversing entropy, this is beyond theoretical. The energy requirements alone would consume entire stellar systems, and the precision necessary to maintain coherence across such vast fields, it borders on the miraculous. It is a miracle in a way, Prime Emissary, Vance replied, a faint, weary smile touching his lips. Born of desperation and millennia of dedicated research, and you are correct about the energy requirements. Our vessels, as you observed, draw power directly from subspace fields. This allows for sustained energy generation on a scale previously thought impossible. However, even our combined armada, generating full spatial reintegration fields, can only hope to stabilize a limited front against the full advance of the Great Dissolution. To truly push it back, to save your galaxy, we will require assistance. Immense assistance. Cathar's primary vision stalks focused intently on Vance. Assistance? Ambassador, what form of assistance can we possibly offer against a threat that defies our understanding and demands capabilities far beyond our own? The question hung heavy with the implicit acknowledgement of their own technological inferiority. Resources, first speaker, Vance stated plainly. Vast, uncharted reserves of exotic matter, specific elemental compounds, and most critically, advanced processing capabilities. Our reintegration fields require constant recalibration, processing intricate quantum calculations across trillions of interconnected nodes. Our armada carries a significant portion of our processing capacity, but to establish a truly effective, galaxy-spanning defense, we will need more. We will need your infrastructure, your asteroid mining operations, your stellar foundries, your quantum computing centers. We will need to integrate our technologies to form a united front. He projected a detailed star chart, highlighting specific regions of the galaxy rich in the needed resources, many of which were under Zalosian or Allied control. Furthermore, the operation will require a complete reprioritization of galactic resources. Military fleets, once tasked with defensive patrols against each other, will need to be repurposed for resource acquisition, for protecting the deployed reintegration vessels, and for establishing communications relays across the vast front line. This will necessitate an unprecedented level of cooperation, of trust, between all galactic powers. The delegates looked at each other, the weight of his words settling upon them. To dismantle their ancient rivalries, to pool their resources, to allow an enigmatic, returned species to integrate its technology into their core infrastructure. It was a paradigm shift beyond comprehension. Yet, the alternative was the slow, inexorable consumption of their very reality. Vithrak, ever pragmatic despite his former prejudices, spoke with a newly found gravity. Ambassador, if what you say is true, and we are indeed facing such an ultimate threat, then the cost of non-cooperation is absolute. However, you ask us to trust you with our core infrastructure, with our very survival. You, a species that vanished for millennia and returned with such unimaginable power. How can we be certain your intentions are truly benevolent? How can we be sure this is not an elaborate scheme, a long con to gain ultimate control? His question, though harsh, echoed the lingering fear in many hearts. Kalen Vance's calm gaze met Vithrak's. High Elder, that is a fair and understandable question. Our reappearance, our capabilities, naturally breed suspicion. We do not ask for blind faith. We ask for verifiable trust. We offer to open our systems to your scientists, to demonstrate our methodologies, to share our knowledge of the Great Dissolution and the reintegration fields. We offer to integrate your strategic and logistical personnel into our command structure, allowing for full transparency in our operations. We offer to share the blueprints for our fundamental technologies, allowing you to independently verify our claims and eventually to replicate our capabilities. He paused, his voice deepening with an almost spiritual conviction. But beyond technology and transparency, we offer something more profound. We offer our history. Our collective journey through 87 millennia of isolation was not merely a scientific endeavor. It was a philosophical crucible. We learned, through countless cycles of trial and error, that true strength lies not in conquest, but in cooperation. Not in dominance, but in empathy. Not in self-preservation at all costs, but in the preservation of all life. We witnessed from our temporal refuge the rise and fall of civilizations, the endless cycle of conflict and temporary peace. We understood that against a threat like the Great Dissolution, the only viable path is unity. We have seen the consequences of division, of fear, of short-sighted ambition. We paid that price in isolation for 87 millennia, learning its lessons. Lyric, the Zethani harmonizer, resonated with a gentle, harmonious hum. He speaks with the resonance of truth, first speaker. His words carry the fundamental frequencies of cosmic balance. There is no discord, no deceit in his patterns. He speaks not of victory, but of survival collectively. Cathar rose from his seat, his multiple vision stalks sweeping over the now silent delegates. The fear of the dissolution warred with the residual fear of the humans, but in Vance's words, in his quiet sincerity, Cathar saw a new path, a fragile hope. "Ambassador Vance," he said, his voice resonating with newfound authority, "the Zalosian hegemony understands the gravity of this threat. We have witnessed your unparalleled capabilities. We have heard your philosophy. We will convene our allied species. We will present your proposal. And if your offer of transparency and unity is as genuine as you claim, then we will stand with you." The chamber erupted, not in panic, but in a mixture of urgent debate and cautious hope. The path ahead was daunting, fraught with unimaginable challenges. But for the first time in millennia, the galactic powers faced an enemy that transcended all their internal differences. And for the first time, they had an ally whose history was a testament to impossible survival and profound wisdom. The humans, once thought extinct, had returned, not just with an armada, but with a terrifying truth and a desperate, fragile solution. The true war was about to begin, not between species, but against the very fabric of existence itself. And the unlikely saviors were the very species they had once written off as a chaotic, self-destructive footnote in cosmic history. The integration was a logistical nightmare, a cultural collision, and a technological marvel all at once. The Zalosian hegemony, along with its myriad allied species, the Virel, the Seldar, the Zethani, and dozens of smaller polities, began the monumental task of reorienting their entire civilizations towards a single, existential threat. Human reintegration teams, comprised of individuals whose calm efficiency bordered on the unnerving, deployed across the Allied territories. They moved through Zalosian stellar foundries, Virel mining operations, and Seldar quantum processing centers with a quiet competence that quickly replaced skepticism with a grudging respect. Ambassador Vance, now a central figure in the newly formed Galactic Defense Council, oversaw the strategic deployment of the spatial reintegration field generators. The human armada, which had once been a source of profound fear, now became the core of the galaxy's last, desperate defense. Their vessels, with their shimmering, adaptable hulls and subspace energy conduits, were dispatched to the outermost reaches of the known galaxy, positioning themselves to intercept the encroaching tendrils of the Great Dissolution. Cathar, as first speaker of the Zalosian hegemony and now co-chair of the Defense Council, spent countless cycles in the main operations center, a repurposed Zalosian command hub now augmented with human holographic displays and quantum processing nodes. He watched as the human specialists, with their serene faces and precise movements, collaborated with his own officers. Their calm was infectious, their logic unimpeachable. They made no demands, issued no commands, but rather offered solutions, optimized processes, and explained complex physics with an accessible clarity that transformed the alien concepts into comprehensible tasks. One day, while observing a man bioengineer integrate a Zalosian-developed rare earth extraction system with a human-designed atmospheric processing unit, Cathar approached Alara, who was overseeing the data flow. "Prime Emissary," he began, "I find myself continually perplexed by their demeanor. They face an enemy that threatens all existence, yet they display no panic, no anger, no visible fear. Their movements are fluid, their voices soft. It is as if they are beyond such emotions." Alara, her light pulsing with a thoughtful yellow, turned to him. "First speaker, I have spent much time with Ambassador Vance and his teams. I believe their outward calm is not an absence of emotion, but a transcendence of it. They faced the ultimate existential threat 87 millennia ago. They survived. They endured. They learned that panic is a luxury they cannot afford. Their emotions are there, deeply integrated, but they have been refined, disciplined, honed into a powerful tool for focus and resilience. They feel, but they do not succumb. She continued, I observed one of their geneticists, working with a Z-Thani botanist, attempting to stabilize a new strain of xenoflora to resist the entropic decay. When the sample failed, the human simply noted the data, adjusted parameters, and began again, without a flicker of frustration. It was a purely logical, almost elegant response to failure. They see it not as a setback, but as another data point in the relentless pursuit of a solution. This observation resonated deeply with Cathar. He remembered the ancient Xylosian archives, the frantic, often chaotic records of humanity's earlier existence. The internal conflicts, the rapid cycles of advancement and self-destruction. The difference was stark, almost incomprehensible. They had gone from raw, volatile energy to refined, focused power. Vithrak, who had spent weeks overseeing the transformation of Virel mining outposts into dedicated exotic matter harvesting centers for the humans, approached Cathar, his mandibles clicking with a rare sound of respect. First speaker, I admit my initial assessments were flawed. These humans, they are unlike any species I have encountered. They demonstrate a capacity for long-term strategic planning that defies our understanding of temporal scope. They plan not for decades or centuries, but for millennia. Their dedication to a single, species-wide goal for 87,000 cycles, it is truly humbling. And their technology, while elegant, is always rooted in fundamental principles, not superficial application. They explain why something works, not just that it works. He then added in a surprisingly candid tone, they also consume very little. Their sustenance requirements are minimal, their waste output negligible. They seem to exist in an almost perfect equilibrium with their environment. Even there, Armada now seems less like a threat and more like a carefully managed ecosystem of survival. The first engagement with the Great Dissolution was a chilling spectacle. From the operations center, Cathar watched the holographic map. The dissolution appeared as a growing, dark stain, expanding from beyond the galactic rim. As it met the first line of human reintegration vessels, positioned in a vast, intricate lattice, the visual was unlike any battle Cathar had ever witnessed. There were no explosions, no energy weapons lashing out. Instead, a shimmering, golden aura erupted from the human ships, expanding outwards, forming a contiguous field. Where the darkness of the dissolution met this golden light, the fabric of spacetime rippled, then stabilized. The dark stain halted its advance, its leading edge blurring, recoiling slightly. It was a slow, arduous process. The human vessels pulsed with immense power, their subspace conduits glowing with fierce energy. But the dissolution was relentless, pushing against the golden field with an unseen, unimaginable force. The human pilots, displayed on auxiliary screens, maintained their calm, their hands moving over their controls with practiced ease, fine-tuning the reintegration fields. They are holding the line, a Xylosian tactical officer breathed, his voice filled with a mixture of terror and awe. It's working. Ambassador Vance's voice, calm as ever, cut through the tense silence. The initial stabilization is successful, however the energy drain is immense. Our current rate of exotic matter synthesis, even with your expanded infrastructure, is barely keeping pace with the demand. The dissolution is accelerating its local entropy decay rate to compensate. We will need to increase the density of the reintegration fields, and for that, we will need more power, far more power. This was the core of the problem. Even with the integrated galactic resources, the humans were pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The Great Dissolution was too vast, too powerful. What else can we offer, Ambassador? Cathar asked, his resolve hardening. What resources have we overlooked? What capability have we yet to deploy? Vance turned, his sapphire eyes meeting Cathar's. First speaker, there is one last recourse. A concept we discovered within our pocket dimension, a way to tap into the foundational energy of stellar cores directly, without the need for traditional stellar engines. It is incredibly dangerous, fraught with risk, and requires a level of technological and consciousness integration that, until now, we believed was beyond the capabilities of any external species. He paused, a flicker of something akin to profound gravity in his eyes. We call it the Nexus Cascade Protocol. It involves linking the core consciousnesses of willing participants directly into the stellar energy matrix, allowing them to act as organic conduits, drawing immense, raw power directly from the heart of a star to feed the reintegration fields. It is a sacrifice, a merging of being with primal cosmic energy. It is not for everyone. The chamber fell silent once more. To willingly merge one's consciousness with a stellar core, it was unthinkable, an act of such ultimate surrender and power that it bordered on the suicidal. Yet the alternative was absolute annihilation. Cathar looked at his allied delegates. Vithrak's mandibles were still. Ilara's light was dim, contemplating the immensity. Lyric, the Zethani, resonated with a new, somber harmony, one of sacrifice and profound connection. "Ambassador," Cathar stated, his voice ringing with a newfound conviction that surprised even himself, "the Zalosian hegemony and all our allies understand the stakes. We have seen your calm, your dedication, your willingness to face the impossible. If this Nexus Cascade Protocol is truly our only path, then we will consider it. We will prepare our people. We will learn. We will adapt. We will not allow our galaxy to be consumed." Vance offered a deep, respectful bow, his serene expression softening into something genuinely moved. "First speaker, I had hoped for this. For true unity, true understanding. You represent the very best of galactic civilization. We will guide you. We will integrate your consciousnesses with ours, easing the transition, mitigating the risks. Together, we will not merely push back the dissolution. We will teach this galaxy how to truly live, united against the ultimate darkness." The decision was made. The galactic powers, once fragmented and suspicious, now stood poised on the brink of an ultimate sacrifice, guided by the very species they had once deemed extinct. Their understanding of humanity had come full circle from chaotic to vanished to impossible saviors. The universe they were learning was far more complex and far more awe-inspiring than they had ever dared to dream. And humanity, in its silent, millennia-long journey, had become its unlikely, profound guardian. The implementation of the Nexus Cascade Protocol was a testament to the humans' profound understanding of consciousness and their patient, meticulous approach to interstellar diplomacy. It was not forced upon the allied species, but offered as a choice, explained with complete transparency and an unflinching honesty about the risks involved. The humans understood the immense psychological and physiological leap required for a species to willingly merge their consciousness with the raw, unfiltered energy of a stellar core. Ambassador Vance and his team established Nexus integration chambers, vast, shimmering constructs within the human vessels, and eventually within repurposed allied starbases. These chambers were not merely technological interfaces. They were sophisticated bioneural synchronizers, designed to bridge the fundamental differences in neural architecture between species, creating a shared, consensual pathway to the stellar matrices. Cathar, driven by a deep sense of responsibility and a burgeoning respect for human philosophy, was among the first Zalosian volunteers. He chose to undergo the initial integration, to understand its depths and its dangers, before endorsing it for his people. Within the Nexus integration chamber, he was guided by a human consciousness, a calming presence that gently resonated with his own, explaining each sensation, each new perception. The experience was beyond words. Cathar's Zalosian consciousness, with its multiple vision stalks and intricate neural network, was slowly expanded, stretched beyond its physical confines. He felt the vast, comforting presence of the human collective consciousness, not as an invading force, but as an ocean of calm, logical thought, offering guidance and strength. Then the connection to the stellar core began. It was not painful, but utterly overwhelming. He felt the raw, unbridled power of a star, its fusion reactions, its immense gravity, its eternal dance of creation and destruction. He was a conduit, a vessel, yet also a participant in its cosmic symphony. The essence of the star flowed through him, channeled and refined by the human-designed interfaces, powering the spatial reintegration fields with an intensity previously unimaginable. When Cathar emerged from the chamber, cycles later, he was profoundly changed. His vision stalks pulsed with a new light, his internal harmonies resonating with a deeper understanding of the universe. He still retained his individual Zalosian consciousness, but now he also carried an echo of the star, a resonance of the human collective, and a profound, unshakable serenity. "It is an honor, Ambassador," Cathar told Vance, his voice imbued with a new depth. "To experience such a connection, it is not merely a technological feat, it is a spiritual awakening. You have taught us more about ourselves and about the universe in these few cycles than we have learned in millennia." Vance simply nodded, his smile gentle. "It is the human way, first speaker, to seek connection, to transcend limitations, not through force, but through understanding. We learned this in our isolation, facing the true immensity of the cosmos. We found that the greatest power lies not in weapons, but in unity of purpose, in the shared consciousness of existence itself." Encouraged by Cathar's experience and facing the relentless pressure of the Great Dissolution, thousands of Zalosian, Virel, Seldar, Zethani, and other allied individuals volunteered for the Nexus Cascade Protocol. The galaxy, once fragmented, began to knit itself together, not just politically, but on a profound, conscious level. The reintegration fields, powered by this unprecedented collective effort, began to push back the dissolution more effectively, slowing its advance, stabilizing vast swathes of threatened space. The human armada, once seen as a formidable war machine, was now understood as a fleet of temples, of conduits, of protectors. Weeks turned into months, months into cycles. The war against the Great Dissolution was not a series of pitched battles, but a relentless, cosmic tug-of-war. The humans, with their calm resolve and their deep wisdom, guided the united galactic forces. They taught them not just how to channel stellar energy, but how to manage the psychological demands of collective consciousness, how to find balance between individual identity and universal connection. As the tide slowly began to turn, as the Great Dissolution's advance was not merely halted but began to recede in specific sectors, a new phenomenon emerged. From the areas where the spatial reintegration fields had been most effective, where the Nexus Cascade Protocol had been sustained for the longest periods, a faint, almost imperceptible signal began to emanate. It was not a data transmission, nor an energy burst. It was a complex, resonant pattern, woven into the very fabric of the newly stabilized spacetime. Alara, whose Seldar physiology allowed for direct interaction with subtle energy fields, was the first to detect it. Her light pulsed with a bewildering array of colors, reflecting both confusion and profound awe. "Ambassador Vance, first speaker Cathar, there is something else, emerging from the wake of the reintegration fields. It is not the dissolution. It is a message, a pattern of extreme complexity encoded directly into the stabilized spacetime." Vance's serene expression sharpened, a rare flicker of intense focus in his sapphire eyes. "A message? From where, Prime Emissary?" "From beyond," Alara whispered, her light dimming in reverence. "From the regions where the dissolution has been most profoundly reversed. It is as if our act of mending reality has awakened something else, something ancient, something that was silenced by the very force we are now fighting." The humans, with their advanced understanding of temporal spatial dynamics, were immediately able to decipher the message. It was not in any known language, but a fundamental mathematical and philosophical construct, woven into the very fabric of quantum reality. Vance, after prolonged integration with the primary Nexus Cascade node, provided the translation, his voice hushed with awe. "It is a warning," Vance began, his voice barely audible. "From the architects, an ancient pan-galactic civilization long vanished that predated even the earliest records of our own species. They were the original guardians of this galaxy. They faced the Great Dissolution, not 87 millennia ago, but hundreds of millions of cycles ago. They built the initial, primordial spatial reintegration fields embedded within the fundamental structure of this galaxy to protect it. Our own, we now realize, were merely reactivating and amplifying their dormant legacy." A profound silence descended upon the command center. Their countermeasures, their discoveries, were in fact echoes of an ancient, forgotten wisdom. "They did not defeat the dissolution entirely," Vance continued, his voice tinged with a new, somber understanding. "They merely shed it back, contained it, but they knew it would return. So they created a final, desperate safeguard, a cosmic-scale warning system designed to activate only when the dissolution reached a critical threshold and when a species capable of understanding and acting upon the warning emerged. It was a message hidden within the very laws of physics, awaiting rediscovery." Projected the full translation of the message. It detailed the true nature of the Great Dissolution, not an aberration but a cyclical cosmic phenomenon, a cleansing wave that periodically swept through the universe, reseeding it with new potential. The architect's message warned that their initial containment was failing, and that the only true long-term solution was not to merely push back the dissolution, but to guide it to harmonize with its cleansing force and to shepherd the next cycle of creation. And they provided coordinates, coordinates to a colossal, abandoned megastructure located far beyond the galactic rim, hidden within a nebula of dark matter. A structure of unimaginable scale and complexity, a cosmic forge, built by the architects to facilitate this ultimate harmony, to guide the cosmic cycles. They left us a path, Vance concluded, his voice filled with a profound, almost spiritual reverence. Not just to fight for survival, but to transcend it, to become guardians of the next cycle. They anticipated our return. They anticipated our unity. They anticipated this moment. The discovery was more than a twist. It was a cosmic revelation. The humans, once thought extinct, had returned to save the galaxy, only to discover that their mission was part of an even grander, ancient design. The true legacy of humanity was not merely their own survival, but their unwitting role as the inheritors of a cosmic guardianship, tasked with guiding the galaxy into the next epoch of existence. The fear, the prejudice, the conflict, all faded into insignificance against the vast, humbling canvas of true cosmic purpose. The galaxy, once a collection of warring factions, was now bound together, not just by an immediate threat, but by an ancient destiny, revealed by the quiet return of a species long thought lost to the dust of time. And in the silent wisdom of the humans, they found the courage to embrace it.